Baltimore Ravens. Feels like holidays to you guys, and maybe you're not working on Thursday or Friday or baking cookies. Out in Owings Mills, though, it is business as usual, maybe even more so. Our Luke Jones will be on the scene all week long, as will this guy. He does all things Ravens for Comcast Sportsnet and the NBC Sports Network. He is Brent CSN out on Twitter, and our pal Brent Harris. We also got to see around the Baltimore AFL on launching last week as well. A lot of football in conversation this week, but I think a lot of questions raised as to whether this team is capable of going on the road and winning in Pittsburgh and then winning in Cincinnati next week, Brent.
But that's what it's all about, Nestor. It's the question, can they do it? And then they're going to get the opportunity. And really, you can't ask for much more than that. I mean, you have a very meaningful game on Christmas Day against your arch rivals on the road, a place that, quite frankly, the Ravens haven't blinked in past years. Joe Flacco has played well in Pittsburgh, and so it should be fun. I mean, this is what December football is all about, and typically we're talking about the opportunity to make the postseason with this team in December, and so it doesn't surprise me they're in this situation, but it certainly does come down to the final 2 weeks.
And Daddy gets his Christmas displaced, doesn't he?
It's crazy. It just seems like this is where the team is destined to go every year. They're not going to make it easy. They're not going to open up a big lead in the division. The Steelers certainly always seem to be there as well. So it just seems fitting that it'll come down to this Christmas Day game. It really does. The division comes down to this big game on Sunday.
Well, you're going to be in Pittsburgh before and after the game at Comcast Sportsnet. All right, you were down on the field Sunday. I was out there. We witnessed it all. And the questions about the play calling are very, very legitimate. I am rarely perturbed after a victory. That was a victory that was quite frustrating to witness, I think.
Yeah, and didn't you get the sense that John Harbaugh felt the same way? I mean, I wasn't in the press conference. I was right next door conducting our post-game interviews, but I went back and watched, and, he basically said it was like the worst play call he'd ever seen on the interception that Joe threw. They should have been throwing the football in that situation. And I said on our show on Sunday after the game that even if you throw the football, even if you call a throwing play, Joe has to be smart enough not to throw an interception, throw it away. You could take a 20-yard sack and still be well within Justin Tucker's range. So you just have to be very smart there. You're in a position to put the game away, at least get some points. Joe said he didn't see the defensive back, so it wasn't as if he was being reckless with the football. He didn't see him, but it's certainly in that situation you probably don't need to throw the football, so it starts with the play calling, and John wasn't very happy about it.
Well, I mean, it's a clock management issue. It's a lead management issue. It's a risk management issue that they failed, from Harbaugh to Marty Morningwig to Flacco to the execution of the play. I don't understand why you're not trying to bleed the clock and run the football there. It just doesn't make any sense.
No, you're right. I mean, keep the clock running, right? I mean, that's what you do late in a game, and you're in a position at the 10, 11-yard line to, ice the game away. Excuse me, not only by, wearing the clock down, but also putting a few more points on the board. And obviously the worst thing that can happen in that situation is turning it over, and that's what happened.
He is Brent Harris from Comcast Sportsnet and the NBC Sports Network. You can follow him out on Twitter. He's tweeting like crazy during game day at Brent CSN as well. For the offense and for at least 3.5 quarters, it felt like it was better and it felt like it was a little more balanced. And I know, not explosive offensively from a passing perspective on Sunday. And quite frankly, they didn't run a lot of plays because the defense got run on a little bit more than we've become accustomed to around here. And I'm thinking that the likes of Brandon Williams and Michael Pearson, these guys probably aren't real happy about it either, right?
No, I mean, there was definitely more balance in the offense. They ran the ball a little bit more. Certainly showed a lot of success running the football. But they're still not taking enough shots downfield. The shot they took to Steve Smith was huge at the end of the first half on the touchdown. But it's still an issue. When you look at that stat, Marty Morningwig said this week the first thing he does after a game when he gets a stat pack is look see what Joe's passing yards per attempt is, and it has been so low this year. I mean, Joe has thrown it more than any other quarterback, but their passing yards per attempt is right at the bottom of the league. And again, it was an issue on Sunday against the Eagles. And, and the stats prove when he's at 6.5 yards or under, they typically lose. Going into that Eagles game, they were 1-5. So, it's not a recipe for success. They typically don't win when they don't test downfield, and they're going to have to continue to throw downfield. I thought it was an interesting stat when you talk about Pittsburgh coming up, that Ben Roethlisberger throws it downfield more than twice what Joe Flacco and the Ravens do. And so he's going to take his shots to Antonio Brown. He's going to throw it downfield, even if they don't complete it. It stretches the defense. It makes you think about it. You've got to protect against the deep throw. It opens up the middle of the field a little bit more. If you're not going to do it, defenses are going to settle in. They're going to blitz you. They're going to be able to play the run better. And so they've got to take more shots. They've got to find some success downfield. And they're going to face a team coming up on this Sunday against the Steelers that certainly will do that. They will put stress on the Ravens' defense with their deep threat.
Well, and then the stress becomes, what about Jimmy Smith? And the reality of him not playing on Sunday feels pretty real earlier in the week. And they've been a different team back there, especially when they face someone with a special wide receiver. We didn't see that on Sunday. I mean, the Eagles don't have that guy. I don't think the Dolphins had that guy. But quite frankly, the Cowboys had that guy. The Giants had that guy. The Steelers have that guy. And the Bengals might get that guy back on the field next week. I mean, it's still, if they beat Pittsburgh this week, we're all going to feel great about that. But Cincinnati's going to be just as treacherous next week.
Oh, it can be. I mean, you're talking about, again, division rivals ending the season with two tough ones. I know Pittsburgh a little bit easier with Cleveland in the final week. You can't go into Pittsburgh, win that game, and then give one up in Cincinnati when the division is in your hands. Of course, it's getting ahead of yourself a little bit, but you're right. I mean, the next 2 weeks are certainly huge. But you got to win in Pittsburgh for that game in Cincinnati really to mean anything at all.
Well, then the Jimmy Smith situation and how they're going to roll on the backside. I mean, obviously, the Weddle/Elam issue in New England bit him last week against a special quarterback who reads defenses. With Roethlisberger, when the play breaks down, getting him down onto the ground, it's a different kind of game than any other game that we play every year. The way he runs around and plays street football and extends plays, that's something that you could talk about, and it's something that I think the Ravens have played well against in recent years, but it's something that is unique to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, when he extends plays and he has the receivers that will continue their routes, it puts a lot of pressure on the defensive backs. Now, I thought Wright and Powers, I thought Weddle, they all played really well against the Eagles. We went into that game without Jimmy Smith thinking that was going to be the weakness. Little did we know it was going to be our run defense, which had been so great this year. It was kind of a reverse situation. But I thought the defensive backs played really well without Jimmy Smith in there. Now, if he's able to go against the Steelers, that is huge. But you're right. When Ben extends plays, it puts so much pressure on the defense because you can't let up. You've got to continue covering. And you know this, Nestor, if a wide receiver is one-on-one with a defensive back and you give them any more than 3 seconds, they'll get open. Remember, the offensive player knows where he's going. The defensive player doesn't. He has all the field to run, and that's what happens. Ben extends plays and makes plays downfield because he'll keep his head up and look to make that big play. It is a unique situation because you're right. Most teams aren't able to have that in their offense, but that's something the Steelers do well. They count on it. It's almost part of what they do on a week-to-week basis. So it's going to be tough. Defensive backs for the Ravens are going to have to continue their coverage and not let up at all. They're going to have a terrific game against Ben and those receivers.
Brent, Ryan Matthews ran the ball pretty well. Le'Veon Bell presents different challenges than most running backs as well, catching the ball, getting into space, making guys miss. Yeah, and he appears to be healthy. And we haven't seen a whole lot of Le'Veon Bell the last couple of years. We haven't seen a whole lot of Ben Roethlisberger, right? I mean, they've always had some sort of ailments, even along their offensive line, their secondary. It always feels like the Steelers are a little banged up coming into this game. This time around, it feels like, between Ben and Brown and Le'Veon Bell, we're going to get their best punch on Sunday up there.
Yeah, let me, I'll turn it a little bit for you because of what happened against the Eagles and giving up so many yards, almost nearly double what they typically give up on the ground against a running back who is quite honestly a, pretty average running back. And they're going to face Le'Veon Bell. I think this defense, especially that defensive front linebackers, they're going to be, I think they were obviously tested. I think they were somewhat embarrassed against the Eagles, and they'll be super motivated coming up against the Steelers. Maybe having that kind of performance this past week against the Eagles is just what this defense needed. Maybe it's the extra motivation. Maybe it has this defensive front, looking a little more tape, maybe a little more prepared, and ready for what is one of the best running backs in the NFL, Le'Veon Bell. So I'll look at a blip on the radar 1 week where they gave up a lot of running yards as maybe a positive where this team can regroup and get ready for maybe their toughest test when you talk about a running back coming up this week.
Well, they certainly didn't have the ball much on Sunday, right? I mean, that how many plays Philadelphia ran, it didn't feel like Flacco and the offense had a lot of plays to be able to get into sync, and they were winning the game, sort of kind of going away before Flacco threw the pick. But all that being said, the ratio of run to pass and the way the offensive line looks, I will buy into this offensive line being a lot better than it was a month ago. And for that, that's one of the saving graces about going to Pittsburgh. It's, the offensive line is getting better, improving, and playing well. Ronnie Stanley's playing really well. For that, I liked our chances a little bit more on Sunday.
No, I agree. I mean, this is the best they played after dealing with so many injuries and moving parts along the offensive line. And when you go into Pittsburgh, when you have the football, it's going to be super loud. I'm sure the Ravens will practice a lot. I shouldn't say a lot. I guess they'll get outside a little bit. But if they can get inside and really crank up the volume and prepare them for what they're going to see on Sunday against the Steelers as far as the fans and the noise and being able to get plays. You just mentioned Ronnie Stanley. He hasn't had the penalties we saw earlier in the year, but certainly he is a guy that's had the offsides, the holding. You get into Pittsburgh, you start hearing the noise. You can't hear the snap count. Boy, that can get in your head, and it can turn you in a hurry. So you hope the recent success really helps, a kid like Ronnie Stanley, and that they can handle the crowd noise because that's going to be pretty tough. In Pittsburgh, it's one of the loudest and toughest places that you're going to ever have to play a football game.
He is Brent Harris, Brent CSN out on Twitter. And, of course, you can follow him at Comcast Sportsnet and the NBC Sports Network. Brent, I watch a lot of CSN now, because I'm always with the Caps, and I'm seeing Carlin do his thing and Alan May and all of your cohorts there as well. And, in criticizing the coaches, that's not something that I do a ton of around here or beat up Harbaugh on a Monday. But I got to tell you that it really struck me that if they lost that game on Sunday, I mean, that one play C.J. Mosley was a part of down on the goal line may have really saved part of the offseason here, because if the season went down the tubes and they lost the game on Sunday, it would have really nullified the meaning of the Christmas Day game against the Steelers. They'd be all but eliminated with a loss to the Eagles. Given how it went down, boy, that's how administrations change. I mean, it was very, very walking the plank on Sunday. I think for the organization to, if they walked off the field having their season wrecked the week before Christmas by the Eagles, I think that would have been a very, very tough thing for the fans to tolerate. And, oh, by the way, I know you're out there. There are a lot of empty seats. I don't know what's going on with the Ravens, but it's something we're going to be talking about around here the next couple of weeks and probably the whole offseason as well.
Yeah, that's a great point because, you're coming off the season they had last year with 5 wins. And if you miss out on the playoffs this year, a team that was really geared up to get there, when you look at the season and, a loss to the Jets, hurt so much. And if you had lost at home against the Eagles on that play call, because that would have been magnified. I thought it was great that Harbaugh came out after the game and was very honest. I mean, he said, I should have vetoed the call. I heard the call, knew it was a terrible call in that moment, and didn't say anything. It's you're talking about, relevance to whether you make a coaching change or not. But it's all there on the table.
But a lot of things had to transpire after that moment for it to look. I mean, it wasn't a good call, but the whole notion that the whole thing could unwind on them, after that play call, every possible thing went wrong from that moment forward, including the 3-and-out by the offense. I mean, the whole thing got shell-shocked from that call. It's. It really would have been something to sit here and talk about had they lost the football game. And obviously Peterson went for the throat, right? I mean, he thought, man, they're reeling. Let's go get them. Let's go end their season, right?
Oh, yeah. And then, look, the Eagles had, very little to play for, but pride. They're on the road. And, I was standing at the 10-yard line. And, as soon as they scored, I turned and said, wouldn't be shocked. 2-point conversion wins it. I think they might try to end it. And, the Ravens season came down to one play. DJ Mosley got a fingertip on the football, and that's the difference. It was that close. Now, if they complete the 2-point conversion, I think you're right. I think the sound and the storyline and the headline becomes, is John Harbaugh the right coach for this team? Because now you have a couple of seasons to look on, and you have a situation where you could have iced the game away, gone into Pittsburgh with a chance to win the division, and it all went away, really, with one call. And, I don't know, obviously Harbaugh would have been let go after this season if they lose that game to the Eagles, but it certainly creates the chatter. It certainly creates a reason for your owner to look at it. And how things changed over that one play, and then, being able to stop them on the 2-point conversion, because the conversation today, Nestor, between us would be a lot different had the Eagles gotten out of there with a win and gotten that last play.
Yeah, it was a WTF moment out on the internet, I think. Brent Harris joins us here from Comcast Sportsnet and NBC Sports Network. All right, so, I put this to you, and I'm a Ravens fan. I got purple underwear and all that. I think it's far-fetched to think they're going to go on the road and win 2 games in a row. I want to see them do it. I'm following the journey. I think you could get long odds in Vegas if you really think the Ravens can win in Pittsburgh and then go win in Cincinnati, and we'll be playing a home game on January 7th or 8th. And quite frankly, it wasn't short on me when Terrell Suggs came out of the tunnel and Steve Smith came out of the tunnel to wonder, is this the last game they're going to be playing at the stadium? Because they have long odds to be able to get back here and host the playoff game. To think that you're going to go steal 2 games on the road, Christmas and New Year's, against your rivals on the road when they haven't won a road game since September 25th.
That's a great point. I mean, they're going to be a huge underdog, I think, going into Pittsburgh. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, they obviously beat them earlier in the season. They have always been able to go into Pittsburgh and, whether they win or lose, they've been great games. And you have a seasoned quarterback that's been in Pittsburgh in big games a ton of times. You have a head coach that's not going to flinch. It's certainly set up a veteran team, veteran guys that'll all be on the field. But I think you're right. I mean, the task at hand is going to be very difficult. And, before you can even get ahead of yourself and say Cincinnati to end the season, it really comes down to Christmas Day. And on paper and right now, and especially playing in Pittsburgh, you've got to think that the Steelers are the better team. Doesn't mean that the Ravens can't go in and win that game, but going into it, it is going to be a tough afternoon.
He is Brent Harris, Brent CSN at Comcast Sportsnet as well as NBC Sportsnet. Always great having you on, Brent. We'll continue to check in. I hope you have a great holiday with your family. I know a little difficult on the media side to be up in Pittsburgh, away from the family on Christmas. But, hey, it's the business we're in, right? At least to your point, it's a very, very meaningful football game. There'll be nobody in Baltimore that doesn't have purple as part of their Christmas holiday this Sunday afternoon, and probably adjusting when the family's going to be eating as well, right?
I'll say this. My daughter is 12 years old, I think, would give up Christmas at least for a day, because we'll open gifts on Monday morning when I get back. We'll be back on the charter pretty late on Sunday night. She'd give it up for a chance to see the Ravens beat the Steelers in Pittsburgh and go to the playoffs. She'll be right in front of the TV. It'll be a great Christmas because it's her favorite team. And we'll open gifts Monday morning, and you know what? The coffee will taste a little better, and the gifts will be a little more meaningful if we're sitting there Monday morning knowing that the Ravens have a great chance to close out and win the AFC North.
Yeah, I told Flacco on the way out of the locker room on Sunday, I said, don't curdle my eggnog, bro. I mean, I don't need to see him making any more tackles, although he did point out that it was a pretty good tackle, and it was, But,
it was a good tackle. I mean, he's gotten ribbed for his sliding and his inability to get down when he runs the football. I got to say, that was a pretty nice tackle. He led in there with the shoulder. That was a nice hit.
Yeah, I don't want to see Joe Flacco tackling anything other than the Lombardi Trophy. Or your cameraman in victory on Sunday. Be good, Brent. Have a great week, man. Happy holidays to you. Merry Christmas.
You too.
Always great to have Brent Harris on. There he is, reporter host for Comcast Sportsnet and the NBC Sports Network. You can follow him at Brent CSN out on Twitter. I'll be watching some CSN this week as well as I get my Caps Jones on when Tampa comes in on Friday. And, of course, they're up in Philadelphia this week as well. We've got C.J. Mosley at Adams Jeep on Tuesday night, as well as next Tuesday night. Mike Wallace will be joining us at Adams Jeep up in Aberdeen. We will be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry. Don't forget, our London trip is now on sale as well. For the holidays, we've got the best price available. I'm going to promise you that. We found the deal to be able to price this thing early and guaranteed, no matter the date, whether they play in September or October, those weeks are guaranteed. If you're going to be going to London, join us at WNST.net. Learn about it under the Trips tab up at WNST.net right now. Morning newspaper ships to your email inbox every morning at 7 a.m. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And last but never least, breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. If you have some questions on the London trip, you just want to say hello, say happy holidays, I'm also out on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, and, of course, streaming live on Facebook Live, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.